Welcome back to another episode of the Culture Compute podcast. I'm your host, Sai Gadupali, and I'm recording from one of my favorite spots on the UMass Amherst campus, the Du Bois Library. As I sit here surrounded by countless stories, ideas, and innovations, I'm reminded of how fortunate we are to live in a time where access to knowledge is almost limitless. This setting feels particularly fitting for today's discussion because we are going to explore how the digital tools we often take for granted are shaping the future of education. One of the things I've learned after producing several episodes of this podcast is that each conversation, each topic needs to resonate not just with me, but with you, the listener. This is more than just sharing research, it's about making connections, fostering curiosity, and exploring how new insights can make a difference in our classrooms and beyond. I'm genuinely excited about today's episode because we are diving into two recent studies that challenge us to rethink how we use technology in education. These studies don't just add to the conversation, but they redirect the notion in meaningful ways, helping us better understand the tools we use and the choices we make as educators, learners, and leaders. Let's start with the first paper. It is titled Why This App? How User Ratings and App Store Rankings Impact Educators' Selection of Educational Apps. This study was led by Dr. Jane Doe, a respected researcher from the University of Texas at Austin, and along with her team in the Department of Education Technology. What makes this study particularly compelling is that it delves into a question that many of us might overlook. How do educators decide which apps to bring to their classrooms? We are in an age where the phrase, there is an app for that, applies to nearly every educational challenge. But as the study reveals, the process of selecting these apps is often influenced by factors that don't necessarily align with educational best practices. Dr. Doe's team found that while user ratings and App Store rankings hold significant sway, they can lead educators to favor popular apps over those that might better meet their pedagogical needs. I think this is a critical finding because it helps and also highlights a gap between what is popular and what is effective. Also, in today's educational landscape, where digital tools are central to both in person and remote learning, I think this research encourages us to take a step back and critically evaluate our selection criteria for choosing apps. The educators, specifically those working with diverse student populations, the implications could be profound. It is a reminder that we must look beyond the star ratings and consider whether an app truly supports our goals for equity, accessibility, and cultural responsiveness. For learners, especially those in K 12, I think the importance of this research cannot be overstated. If educators rely too heavily on ratings, they risk overlooking apps that could better address the unique needs of all learners. This study is a call to action for educators to be more discerning to ask the tough questions, such as, does this app support differentiated instruction? Does it reflect the diverse experiences and backgrounds of my students? And so on. By shifting our focus from popularity to purpose, I believe we can ensure that the tools we choose can enhance learning in ways that are meaningful and inclusive. Now let's turn to the second study. It is titled Serious Game Based Learning and Learning by Making Games: Types of Game Based Pedagogies and Student Gaming Hours Impact Students' Science Learning Outcomes. It's a long title, but the research was conducted by Dr. Elisha Ding from the University of Georgia and Dr. Cheng Hang Yu from Marquette University. Their work investigates two distinct approaches to game based learning. One is serious game based learning, where students engage with games designed explicitly for education, and learning by making games, where students create their own games as a learning activity. This study is particularly relevant in today's context, where gamification is increasingly being used to engage students and enhance learning outcomes. What's fascinating about this research is its focus on not just how these game based pedagogies work, but who they work for and under what conditions. The research findings reveal that while both approaches can improve science learning outcomes, the learning gains were significantly higher for students who engaged in creating their own games. I can actually connect this to my own work with game design for computational thinking, which is the topic of my PhD dissertation. I think also, additionally, the amount of time students spent gaming outside of school played a crucial role here, with those reporting moderate gaming hours showed the greatest improvement. Now, why is this important? In a world where students are constantly interacting with digital environments, understanding how to harness and embrace that interaction for educational purposes is the key. For K-12 and also for higher ed, I think this study provides clear evidence that active learning, which is where students are creators rather than just consumers, can lead to deeper understanding and better retention of complex subjects like science. I can also connect this with the past episode where they were trying to teach quantum information science, which is also a complex topic to teach. The research also highlights the need to consider students' gaming habits when designing educational experiences. For some students, the traditional approach of playing educational games might not be enough. They need to be challenged to think critically, to design, and to create. In terms of higher education, particularly in teacher preparation programs, the implications are equally significant, I think. As future educators learn to integrate technology into their teaching practice, understanding the nuances of different pedagogical approaches becomes critical. This study shows us that one size does not fit all. Educators need to be equipped with the knowledge and the skills to choose and implement the right strategies for their specific contexts. Moreover, also, I think it underscores the importance of fostering creativity and agency in students and skills that are increasingly valuable in a world that demands both innovation and adaptability. As we wrap up today's episode, I'm reminded of something I've learned over the past few recordings of this podcast. It is not just enough to share information, we also need to explore its implications, challenge our assumptions, and consider how we can apply new insights in practical ways. These studies we discussed today, the challenges to think differently about the digital tools we use, and the pedagogies we embrace. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the latest in the learning sciences. Your engagement, your curiosity is what makes these discussions meaningful. The music for this podcast is composed by Liborio Conti, whose work adds a thoughtful rhythm to our exploration of education, technology, and culture. If you have any feedback or thoughts, my email is in the show notes. Until next time, let's keep learning, questioning, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in education.